welcome to the Fort Bend Voter News Meet the Candidate interviews. My name is Denise Joshua, and I'm on the editorial board of the Fort Bend Election News. We have with us candidate Lee Merritt. Lee, my first question to you is going to be, why are you running for
and give him the
office?
outline of
Texas Attorney General.
I heard someone come in and, as you were asking that question. I want to make sure that wasn't also a part of the question, but why am I running? I'm running for the position of Texas Attorney General because I believe that the Democratic Party needs a candidate that has the experience, that has the relationships, and most importantly, has the tenacity to not only win at this office, but to use it to serve the people of Texas, to serve them in the historic fight for voting rights protections, to serve them in protecting our schools from both the CRT myths and this politicized control over mass, to protect Texans at every aspect of Texas life. That Texas AG's office virtually impacts every aspect of Texas life, and we should have somebody with the credentials and with the background to actually get the job done.
Texas Attorney General, the top law enforcement officer for the entire state of Texas. What are your concerns for the regarding the current state of the Attorney General's office, and how are you going to be a contrast to that?
Well, speaking first about the law enforcement community, as the top law enforcement officer for the Texas Attorney General's, through the Texas Attorney General's office, we have a responsibility to ensure the troops are taken care of. And retention rates are high. Suicide rates are among the highest rates among law enforcement officers than we've seen in decades. Morale is low because we have tasked our law enforcement community with taking on a mental health crisis that Governor Greg Abbott has acknowledged, that we've acknowledged across the country, partly in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But that mental health crisis is having a toll. And there have been no mental health resources afforded to our law enforcement officers or to our communities. There's not a single mental health department in the state of Texas. And we've seen a spike in instances of mental health crisis. We know that people who are in mental health crisis, like our veterans, are more likely to have violent police encounters. And that law enforcement just lack the training and the resources to deal with these communities on their own. We need a specific push out of the Attorney General's office to address this crisis using strategies that have known to work. This is the kind of work that I've been doing throughout my career, and I plan to bring that experience and those strategies into the AG's office.
Ms. Daphne Jack. And the question I have for you, do you support reauthorizing the Violence Against Women's Act with the expanded protection?
I would be in support of reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act with expanded protections. Unfortunately, because of some of the decisions being made out of Austin, women are in more danger. There are three ways that I can think that our government in Austin has currently amplified the war against women in a way that creates more danger for us all. The first is when law enforcement community told them, please do not allow constitutional carry. We should have at least a minimal threshold before people can get weapons, because we know those weapons that are supposed to be for private personal protection are more often than not used against a victim within the home itself. And if we're going to care for women, then we need to care for women's total health. And we need to be pushing to ensure that Texas women, who are some of the most uninsured in the country, have insurance coverage. And we certainly should not be allowing bounty hunts, both unconstitutional and just absurd in their standing through SB8 bounty hunts on women who are making difficult reproductive decisions. So I would support the law, and I would also push for greater protection of women in Texas generally.
Lee, final question. What steps do you think we should take to address police brutality in communities of color and marginalized communities?
I've always said we have to change. Okay, looks like I left the show and came back. I've always said that we have to change the mission when it comes to our law enforcement communities. We reduce police violence when we end the so-called war on drugs, and instead we make it a priority to provide opportunities through our law enforcement communities. I helped start a school of law and social justice for high school students that would help produce our future lawyers and policymakers, but also our future law enforcement community. The Texas Attorney General's office needs to reinvest in recruiting law enforcement, helping counties to recruit law enforcement who is local. And we also need to change the mission. We need to end the bloody war on drugs as we move into the cannabis, the legalization of cannabis, which is gaining bipartisan support. We need to be sure that the economic benefits gained from the exchange, from the sale of cannabis is poured back into the communities most impacted by the last 50 years of violent policies.
In closing, if elected, what will be your top priorities?
We have to secure the right to vote. As the Texas Attorney General's office, you're supposed to be the people's lawyer, and the people should have a say at every level of politics, from our school board to our city councils, to the governorship. And as long as the Republican Party is working using the instruments of government to suppress the vote, then we as a people, as citizens in Texas, are handicapped. We need to go further to ensure that reasonable accommodations made during the pandemic, like 24-hour voting, mail-in, greater access to mail-in voting, drive-through voting, and all those reasonable accommodations that resulted in the historic turnout is still available to Texans. We want Texas to be a safer place to vote, a more inclusive place to vote, and the AG's office should be helping to facilitate that instead of course, doing what it's doing now, which is just the opposite.
For your time today, do you have any other questions?
No other questions.
Do you have your closing remarks?
Sure thing. I came to Texas I'm a part of the 4 million Texans who arrived here in the last 10 years. I brought my office specifically here to Texas to address a crisis as I saw it in governmental overreach and an attack of individual rights. We've seen that populate itself all over the state of Texas, where local control over our school boards, over our decisions concerning the pandemic are under attack. Individual rights for women, for members of the LGBTQAI community are under attack. And we need a constitutional fighter in that office to push back against right-wing extremism. I have proven myself to be that fighter in practice. I want to do it officially for you all on behalf of the people of Texas. We're asking you to come out on February 14th. That's just 7 days away, the start of early voting, to support our campaign.
Lee, thank you so much for your time today.
We look forward to seeing you back here in this region, and look forward to working with you.
And
Thank you
good
so
luck
much
on the campaign.
Thank you. Blessings, guys. Enjoy your Monday.